The North Atlantic Ocean, a vast, unforgiving expanse of water that has swallowed ships and sailors for centuries. But sometimes it doesn't just take those at sea. Sometimes it reaches onto the land itself. Our story takes us to the Flannan Isles, a remote, wind-battered cluster of rocks 21 miles off the west coast of Scotland. In the year 1900, these islands were home to a brand new lighthouse, a 74-foot beacon of hope for sailors navigating these treacherous waters. It was manned by 3 keepers: James Duckett, a seasoned veteran with over 2 decades of experience; Thomas Marshall, a strong, reliable family man; and Donald MacArthur, a tough, often volatile seaman known as an occasional brawler. They were 3 men isolated from the world, their lives governed by the turning of the light and the rhythm of the tides. For over a year, the light shone faithfully, a constant guardian against the dark. But in the middle of December 1900, the light went out. On December 15th, the steamer Arctur, on its route from Philadelphia to Leith, recorded in its log that the Flannan light was not operational. The weather was poor, but the absence of the beam was noted. However, upon docking, this crucial piece of information was never passed on to the Northern Lighthouse Board. For 11 long days, no one knew the light was dark. No one knew that 3 men on a remote rock were incommunicado. The world continued, oblivious. It wasn't until December 26th, Boxing Day, that the relief vessel, the Hesperus, finally arrived. Captain Jim Harvey was in command, carrying relief keeper Joseph Moore. As they neared the island, a sense of unease began to settle over the crew. The usual flag was not flying from the mast. The landing platform, usually prepared for their arrival, was bare. No keepers were there to greet them. Captain Harvey sounded the ship's horn. The loud blast echoed across the rocks and died away into silence. He fired a signal flare into the gray, overcast sky. Again, only the cries of the gulls and the crashing of the waves answered. A deep dread began to take hold. Joseph Moore, the relief keeper, volunteered to go ashore alone. He was rowed to the landing, a perilous task in the churning sea, and began the long climb up the 160 steep, rock-cut steps leading to the lighthouse. Every step heightened the tension, the silence growing heavier and more profound. He reached the top, pushed open the main door, and stepped inside. The scene that greeted him was one of chilling domestic stillness. In the kitchen, a meal was laid out on the table, as if the keepers had been about to sit down to eat. A single chair was overturned, a jarring note in an otherwise orderly room. The beds in the sleeping quarters were unmade. The clock on the wall had stopped. One of the most perplexing details was the state of the men's foul-weather gear. 2 sets of oilskins were missing, but 1 set, belonging to Donald MacArthur, was left behind. This was deeply strange. The lighthouse regulations were explicit. No keeper was ever to venture out onto the exposed cliff face alone, especially not in a storm. And why would a man go outside into a fierce Atlantic gale without his protective gear? It made no sense. Moore searched the rest of the lighthouse. Everything was in its place. The lamps were trimmed and filled with oil, ready to be lit. The logbook entries were neat and up to date until 9 a.m. on December 15th. The last few entries were bizarre. On December 12th, Thomas Marshall wrote of a severe storm, the likes of which he had never seen in 20 years. He described James Duckett as being very quiet and noted that Donald MacArthur had been crying. This was shocking. MacArthur, the tough brawler, weeping? The entry for December 13th spoke of the storm still raging and noted that all 3 men had been praying. Why would 3 experienced, stoic lighthouse keepers, safe within a fortress of stone 150 feet above the waves, be praying? Lighthouses were built to withstand the worst of nature. The final entry on the morning of the 15th simply read, "Storm ended, sea calm. God is over all." The official investigation, led by Superintendent Robert Muirhead, concluded that the men had likely been swept away by a freak wave. The theory went that perhaps a piece of equipment on the western landing had come loose during the storm. 2 men went out to secure it. When they didn't return, the third man, possibly MacArthur, rushed out after them, forgetting his oilskins in his panic, only to be swept away by another enormous wave. There was some evidence to support this. The supply box on the western landing was smashed, and iron railings were bent out of shape. It would have taken a wave of incredible power to cause such damage so high above sea level. But this explanation has never satisfied everyone. The details just don't add up. Why were they writing about a storm 3 days before it was reported by the passing arbiter? The weather on the surrounding sea was reportedly calm at that time. Why would 3 experienced keepers all go outside together, violating the most basic rule of their profession? And why was MacArthur crying? Over the centuries since their disappearance, countless other theories have emerged, each more fantastic than the last. Some whisper of a sea serpent, a great beast from the depths that snatched the men from the rocks. Others suggest they were abducted by a foreign vessel, or perhaps even by aliens. A more grounded but equally dark theory points to murder. Could a fight have broken out? Perhaps the volatile Donald MacArthur finally snapped. Did he kill the other 2 and then, consumed by guilt, throw himself into the sea? The overturned share could be evidence of a struggle. This might explain why he left his oilskins behind. He wasn't planning on coming back. Another psychological theory suggests a shared madness, a folie à trois, where the isolation and claustrophobia of the lighthouse drove them insane. Maybe they believed something was coming for them, and in a fit of paranoia, they cast themselves into the ocean. We can even look at the logbook itself. Were the entries genuine? Or were they a fabrication, written by a single unhinged survivor to cover his tracks? The strange entries about the storm and the crying could have been a deliberate attempt to create a false narrative before the final desperate act. We are left with nothing but shadows and speculation. The ocean holds its secrets tight. The truth of what happened on the Flannan Isles in December 1900 was lost to the wind and the waves. The story of James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur has become a ghost story, a maritime legend passed down through generations. They are 3 names etched into the lore of the sea, a permanent reminder of the power of the natural world and the enduring mystery of what lies just beyond the reach of our understanding. Their silent, empty lighthouse stands today, its light now automated, a lonely monument on a remote rock, forever guarding a story to which we will never know the end. Thank you for watching. If you found this mystery as captivating as we do, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest unsolved cases.